And away we go. It's the DFS early bird right here on Turkey Day. That's right, I called it that. I know someone on Twitter said if you call it Turkey Day, I'm gonna hurt you. But it's Turkey Day. It's Thanksgiving. It's me. It's EMAC. It's the day before, probably for a lot of you, as we're gonna release this on Wednesday afternoon. We are looking at the NFL 3-game slate here. Obviously, no NBA on Thanksgiving. First and foremost, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Hope for those who are traveling and listening to us, we bring down the blood pressure. We bring down the tension as you sit in traffic. Sit in the airport, sit at the train station, and you're crowded by the most terrible people in the world. And for those traveling to deal with your crazy uncle, whether liberal or, conservative, whatever side of the fence, we all have that crazy uncle. Enjoy and have some fun. Talk some football. EMAC, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Dan. This is a fun one. We have a gigantic slate just across everywhere. Well, the slate is 3 games, that we know, but goodness, the prize pools are they're outdoing themselves. It's
they know the attraction here. They know on the big sites, DraftKings fan, and the smaller ones too, but they know that this is the day for watching football. It's the day for casual fans watching football, right? How many fans, EMAC, all get together, how many families all get together and put on the game? And how many families now can say, hey, let's make a DraftKings lineup. Let's have some fun. So, we're going to go game by game here, break these down quickly. Not going to belabor these games. You will, get EMAC's write up over there on Osmo.com. If you want to check it out. If you are not yet a member, you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD. That's one word, to get 1 free week at Osmo.com. So, EMAC, we'll go, game by game. I guess some news here. At the top of our first one would be whether or not Mitchell Trubisky plays. I have not seen any new word on that. There are conflicting reports on what quote-unquote sources are saying, whether or not he will play. Adam Schefter on Tuesday reported he assumes he will play. Then a bunch of different Chicago local papers said, we're assuming he's not playing. That would give us Chase Daniel in his first start since 2014, a matchup with Detroit. Looking at Vegas, which is sometimes indicative of the news that could come out, it opened as a -3.5. It now sits at a -3. So not a big swing here. I assume if Trubisky is in fact out, we'd see a slide there closer to even, if not Detroit even favored here at home. How do you break this one down? Who are the players that you're taking a look at, and how do you leverage off of this potential Trubisky news?
Sure. And first off, there's a great game with the nightcap. My guess is probably 2/3, maybe even 3/4 of all players are going to be from that game. So right. First and foremost, there's not a late night hammer. This is where the fun is going to start. And the overlap is probably going to be really crazy. So we're going to look at this, of course, game by game, and we're going to highlight things. Now, if you're doing your cash game build, if you will, and I do think you can do cash games on this slate. I don't always say that on the 3-gamers. You're going to want to get in probably 3 players from that late game, 2 of the wide receivers and 1 of the running backs, or do a Kamara, Ingram, Julio, etc. You're not going to be unique. The other thing to remember is your early winnings are going to go down dramatically there towards the end, because we've got a 60-point over-under in this late game. So putting all that aside, Trubisky I think is probably going to play. Is he going to be effective? I don't know. That's the wild card. This is a pretty short turnaround. These guys played on Sunday night. Now they're playing the first game on Thursday morning. So that is really, really quick. Now they were at home Thursday, and they're Chicago to Detroit isn't exactly a super duper long way to go. These teams are both used to playing on Thanksgiving, so that shouldn't be a huge surprise institutionally to him. My fear is that Trubisky's dinged up and he goes out early. If Chase Daniels comes in, all bets are off. I think it turns into a Josh Howard game for Chicago, and or a very short passing game to Tariq Cohen. I think it goes to the running backs, both of them, plural, and I think the wide receivers are the ones that are going to miss out. If we look at the tight end option, I'm not really a fan of Trey Burton. There's not many good tight ends on this slate, so I think you can try to play a lottery ticket, but Burton doesn't see a ton of targets, and he tends to not always be put in the best position if it is Trubisky, because he's not exactly your traditional gigantic tight end that you expect. to see. So from this first game, I think if Trubisky plays, he's a fine wild card. If he turns out to be healthy, it wouldn't be an incredible shock to see him have his hand in 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns, because weird stuff happens on Thanksgiving, and it is Detroit. On the other side, Stafford's got a tough matchup here going against the Bears. But again, Bears are on a short turnaround, and they're on the road. So I think you can go either way with these quarterbacks. I would probably only play them both in tournaments. If I was looking for my cash game quarterback, as people like to call that, we'll talk about the late games, or I'd go with one of the guys in the second game. But with regards to this, it's a bit of a mess, because we know that Kerryon Johnson is also out on the other side. So Zach Zenner is going to be prominently involved. If you go over there on FanDuel, I just noticed that they have put a banner at the top of their games, and they have said that, let me read that. It says, Zach Zenner has been added to the player pool as of Tuesday, November 20th. And that doesn't always happen. Rarely are they going to add somebody to the player pool once these things have been kicked off. This is a special circumstance, and oh my gosh, they have to have him in the player pool, and they're giving people enough time to work with it. So why he wasn't in the player pool in the first place, I don't know, but he is in there now. He is the near minimum guy on DraftKings. He is the absolute minimum. He has appeared the last 2 weeks. He's been active the last 2 weeks. He has 1 touch, but he's averaging 12 yards per touch over the last 2 weeks on 1. So your mileage may vary. Who knows what's going to happen? Touchdowns are going to be the operative word of the day. He's going against the Bears. We're looking for lottery tickets. We won't be alone in going to him, but gosh, if you pick him, it does open up a few other things. I've got a couple of guys I like better, but that is where we are with him. With regards to the wide receivers, just kind of cleaning up in Detroit here. Let's see. My apologies. Get the filter set here. Marvin Jones is looking like he's going to miss this game, so that means Kenny Golladay is going to get the influx of targets. Of course, that also means he's going to get all of the attention from the Chicago Bears. The guy I think that he's not going to be overlooked. He's going to be overlooked not by the DFS world, but by anybody else that doesn't listen to all the content that's out there. Bruce Ellington he was released by Houston. He is now with Detroit. Last week was the first week he was active. He saw 9 targets, 6 catches, 52 yards. It was not TJ Jones, who's been with the team forever, hurt, not hurt, active, inactive, 4th, 5th receiver, whatever. But TJ Jones saw 1 target for 2 yards. So I like Ellington. I think he's going to be one of your cash game discount dandies. We're not going to be alone on that. That's fine. Let somebody else make the mistake in cash games. In tournaments, I would prefer him, but so is everybody else once they look at the game logs and hear the analysis, and that makes TJ Jones. What if Jones got 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown, and Ellington gets, 2 or 3 catches for 12 yards? That could happen against the Bears. All of a sudden, TJ Jones got the touchdown. There's your leverage play. This is where it gets really, really funky. This is like a showdown slate on steroids, Dan. Yeah,
you're not wrong. And here, listen, I will say this, and I say this with every short slate, have fun. And EMAC and I probably come at fantasy sports a little bit different than some of the MMEers and the guys doing this full time. And this is a slate to have fun with. So if you want to get variant, this is sort of game. If you project this to go over what Vegas does, it's going to be lower ownership. It's going to be the place where you can get a little bit of variance. Is Bruce Ellington that variance? I don't know, but the upside for 1 or 2 touchdowns is there if this game pushes the over. Now, I will say this. You said Josh Howard. I believe you meant Jordan Howard before.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Let's talk about Dallas Mavericks, who are no longer in the league.
Exactly. Like you said, I was like, well, that's a name I haven't heard in a really long time. But I think the running backs are key here from Chicago. I do think I don't think Trubisky plays. I just don't see why they risk a shoulder injury. Like, that's the thing. There's so many injuries from a quarterback perspective that I understand. He takes 1 hit and gets driven into the ground, probably a penalty, but you're done for. and like it becomes a serious long-term injury. He's shown he's a good enough quarterback in the NFL. The legs have become a lot better. The decision-making has become a lot better. I hope they sit him. I would love to have the Chase Daniel experience here on Thanksgiving, just see what happens. And from the other side of the coin, I just don't know what to make of Detroit. Selling off Golden Tate, the way they've been playing, Johnson out. I'll probably play, I can't play Zach Zenner. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't care how cheap he is. But I have not done any lineup construction as of yet, though I am intrigued to see where we get to as we piece it all together. I do wonder, I hope we see a Vegas update. If we see a big swing in this over-under or the spread, I think then we have confirmation Trubisky's out. If we don't, I don't know what to say. Like, I assume he plays then. I assume he at least is a game time decision leaning towards playing. So I think that's a big question mark in this one as we roll through. That's a risk, but you're going to have to take risks on this slate. That's just plain and simple. You're going to have some fun with your lineup construction. And this is a slate to maybe play if even Trubisky's probable or game time decision, play a Chase Daniel lineup to just cover off on that possibility.
Two guys, they don't say we forgot them. Theoretic and LeGarrette Blount. Yes, absolutely, they're in play. Theoretic is the better play. He will probably see more touches. We've seen him split out in the slot. It's when Bruce Ellington showed up, less of that occurred. So he's kind of back to being the running back. He's probably the lead guy, but he has not excited us this year. He's still the one that you would want to back. LeGarrette Blount, would it shock anybody if he got 2 touchdowns on a Thanksgiving Day? No, absolutely not. However, in his last 4 games, he has 15 yards rushing on about 15 attempts. He's not getting it done. By the way, within that, no touchdowns. So it's just not. This is not the Patriots, LeGarrette Blount. This is the Detroit Lions.
Right. Hold on 1 second here, EMAC, as my computer is frozen. All right, there we go. Love when that happens in the middle of the podcast. Let's move on, because obviously we can go through every player, but I don't think that helps anyone in getting analysis here. We move on to our next game, which is Washington at Dallas. Obviously, the Theismann-like injury to Alex Smith puts Colt McCoy under center, puts Mr. Butt Fumble Sanchez as the backup quarterback here for the Washington Redskins. I'm a Jets fan. I can say things like that. I have really no desire to watch this football game from a football perspective. Like, I get that this is America's team, blah, 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 blah. And Washington, it's an NFC East matchup, but these are 2 bad football teams. I get that Dallas has been making it work somehow or another, and Washington has pieced together wins, but I just don't enjoy watching them play. So that sort of created a bias for me here, EMAC, on who I will play, like what players I'll play from these 2 teams, because I just don't care about them. Obviously, you talked about tight end not being great. Jordan Reed finally last week had the week we'd been hoping for, 7 receptions on 11 targets, a TD. He's been healthy. He's been healthy all year, but hasn't been utilized, especially when Alex Smith was under center and all he does is check down. How are you not throwing to Jordan Reed? But anyway, it happened last week. He's 4,700 on DraftKings. Makes for a good play, but an expensive play, especially when you have Atlanta, New Orleans as your nightcap here. What's this game for you? What are some of the names you're looking at? And then we'll close it out with talking about that nightcap that's going to have a ton of offense in it.
Sure. In this one, this is your dire consequences. But if you're going for a quarterback that's not in the marquee matchup, and if you go for one of those quarterbacks, that means you miss out on one of the bigger position players.
So as we're recording here, I do want to read off Mitchell Trubisky is officially doubtful for Week 12, was just released. So.
Okay, we saw Brock Osweiler throw.
Oh yeah.
Shred a top defense. So let's just Chase Daniels is there. Colt McCoy. No, thank you. Yeah, if you're trying to get a little different, but what are we actually going to see from him? It would be a shock if he gets more than 2 touchdowns. I think it's more likely he runs for 1 and throws for 1 than anything else. But again, if the other players have crappy games, if somebody gets hurt in the later game, that's where all of a sudden you're sitting pretty, because we are going to see the popularity of these, the plays that don't stink off the charts. So this is where you may want to play one or two lineups. If you're not a big volume guy, as Dan said, pick a story. What could happen? Wouldn't it be fun if I got to see my name in lights? How am I going to do that? Well, perhaps it will be by playing one of these quarterbacks. Now, if you're going to do cash games, I think Dak Prescott, particularly on DraftKings, is probably the quarterback I'd be going for, because I can still get 3 premier guys from that late game at the position players, and I think that's what I would probably do. In fact, if you take any of my games that are out there and posted on DraftKings, you will see that's what I'm going to do. Outside of that, Prescott, not exactly an exciting player. Doesn't have a massive upside. We've seen that throughout his entire career. He does have a little bit of a cushion from the running game. He has 3 touchdowns this year. He had similar to last year. He gets a little bit, but the upside's just not there. Who's he going to throw it to? Well, maybe Amari Cooper, but we know how hard it is for people to come into a new team, particularly receivers, particularly in the middle of the year, and develop a rapport with the quarterback, who, by the way, is not the best at throwing the ball. So while Cooper may have some, he's been with them almost a month now, but he probably only knows 30% of the playbook, maybe. Most of the plays that he's in there are going to be designed for him, or he's going to be the first read, or it's going to be a sort of a misdirection, and he's really the read, but they're going to try to look off onto the somebody else and then get the ball to him. So you have to like the fact that he'll probably see half a dozen targets, but who knows what's going to happen. Of course, this is Thanksgiving. Could see 2 touchdowns on those. I don't hate Cole Beasley. He is discounted. He will be around the line of scrimmage. I like him on the full point per reception sites, but he's someone that you can consider. If you're looking for a running back, I don't hate the idea of Adrian Peterson. This is the hopes that the Redskins can slog it down in there and they can get a touchdown and it goes to him. Or he can break one. By the way, we've seen him break a couple this year. He's someone who's off the field. Things have not been the best in the world, but you gotta admit he is a freak of nature when it comes to being an athletic specimen. And I thought he would be done. I thought he was done last year, and here he is. He's the lead running back on the team that's leading their division. That's the other thing about this one. Washington is 6-4. Cowboys are 5-5. This is kind of a win or go home, because whoever wins is probably going to get momentum, and it means the Redskins are going to be in trouble because they've got a horrible quarterback situation. If the Redskins can get a win, it means they have a shot at the division. They're going to get caught for the wild card, so I think it all comes down to the division. But now they're getting tiebreakers on some of these teams, and this is a huge one going against the Cowboys. So that's kind of my analysis there. If you like Jordan Reed, he's the most expensive tight end. Right. Yes, he's not expensive, but he relatively, and we have to think about things relatively, he is on DraftKings, he's the top, and on FanDuel, he is just a little bit below Trey Burton. Oh, that reminds me. There's one other guy I think we want to talk about in this game. Trey Quinn. Dan, Trey Quinn. Did you think we were going to talk about him? And no, this is not Trey Quan Smith. This is Trey Quinn. No relation. They don't even look alike. So,
no, they do not. They do not.
Quinn is, shall we say, a Cole Beasley clone of sorts. Yeah. He was Mr.
Trey, Surfer Trey, not Tre. Yeah.
So he went to Houston, of all places, and that was Cortland Sutton was also there.
Yep.
So he has spent. Wait, was it Houston or SM? It was SMU, right? Sorry.
For Trey, I thought he was in Houston too. No.
I can't remember. In any event, my apologies. I don't play DFS.
He played college
anymore, and because of such, I don't remember.
So he was an LSU commit, played there 1 year, and then transferred to SMU. So Southern Methodist.
Okay, and I did know that he was at LSU. Hey, outside of now, we're getting off course, but never mind. We could mention Landry, we could mention Beckham, but outside of that, LSU doesn't really put receivers in the league. But back to this, I think he's someone we definitely have to look to. He is going to be one of the few healthy guys. He could very well surpass Maurice Harris, who, he's done okay for DFS purposes. The reason he has is because he's been darn near the minimum, and he's been peppered with targets, and that has not been consistent. But Josh Doxson never has harnessed his talent. I don't know that Colt McCoy can be able to have any time to get the ball to him, because let's remember the Redskins are also missing 3 of their offensive linemen. It's just an absolute mess. So I think Trey Quinn is somebody that you can definitely look to, particularly in your cash games. That was the last thought I had here, other than Jeff Swaim is probably doubtful. That's the worst way to say it. He is highly unlikely to play. I don't want to use probable and doubtful in the same sentence. Get me out of here, Strafford.
Yep, we're moving on. That's how it works. Let's go to the nightcap. Now, obviously, play everyone, right? It's Falcons, Saints. You're going to find some value here too. It's not just that you're paying up for every player. You do have the likes of Mohamed Sanu and Brandon Marshall down here on the cheap end of the spectrum. If you want to make that jump, Ito Smith, Tevin Coleman are involved here as well. And then the quarterbacks and the tight ends, Austin Hooper and Ben Watson, all of the pieces here. I don't mind the pricing on DraftKings. I don't think they stranglehold you on lineups, but that makes it that much more difficult because everyone's going to have the same value. Like everyone's going to have the same pieces because of this game. But that makes the point to an extent of maybe paying up in the other games, right? Going for the Ezekiel Elliott's of the world, going for the higher price pieces in those contests, and then using this game for your value, getting exposure to it, and hoping it's a weird Brandon Marshall, Ben Watson, Mohamed Sanu game with Ito Smith picking up 2 touchdowns. Again, thinking of the narratives, thinking of how these things can play out. I think it's important to think through that and understand how to get somewhere properly and get to that price point that you want. I think as we look at this game, EMAC, and we determine exactly what we want to do, again, have fun, but you're right. It's 2/3 of most teams are probably going to be from this contest. How do you navigate it? Who are your favorite plays, and how do you see this one shaking out?
All right. Well, now here's a good one, because over there on Osmo.com, for those of you that aren't spending any money, there's a free article posted right now on the homepage that breaks down this entire game from a single game contest, also known as the primetime slates, written by yours truly. So I have in-depth gone through every position, and then I've ranked the players in this game. Now, I was using pricing for the single game slates, but we do have that information there. We also have additional information from Chris Fags breaking down all 3 games. So that is on the front page. That is also a gimme. But you know what we do have coming up? We have Black Friday coming up and then Cyber Monday. I just want to let everybody know that if you use the promo code CYBERMONTH, all one word, you get 50% off of your first month. That means you get the whole month for half price. For those of you that enjoy the content, this is another way we can get you some good, a limited time deal as well. But if you want to sign up for a whole year, this is an all-access membership. We'll give you 12 months for the price of 10. So you're going to save $120 on your annual subscription. These, of course, are limited time offers, but in honoring Cyber Monday and Black Friday, that's what we're going to do here. Now, back to the game. This one is kind of interesting. So in my overall opinion on the 3-game slate, I didn't hit on him enough at all, but I think Ezekiel Elliott, for me, is probably the number 1 play, because I think all paths lead through him in that Dallas game. If they're up, they're going to run with him because they've got to get wins. If they're down, we already know he's a major part of the passing game. So he's probably my favorite guy. Looking at this game, of course, is going to be wildly enticing. So let's start with our quarterbacks here. Let's look at Atlanta first, because they're the visitors. So this is the second time these teams have played. They crushed it in the first game. Week 3, it was a 43-37 road victory for the Saints. That's when we thought the Saints were still the, quotes, Coors Field of defenses. The Saints defense has tightened things up quite a bit, so this could be a little bit different. Right now, we've got Matt Ryan. He is leading the league in passing with 331 yards per game. He is on pace to have the 3rd highest number of all time. He's also 6 with 22 passing touchdowns. He has just 4 interceptions. He is pretty good. He's also probably going to be playing from behind. So there's a guy that you might, yes, Drew Brees could be better, but we've seen games where Drew Brees is not necessarily needed to be called upon because the defense gets a touchdown or their special teams does in some way. The running backs get touchdowns, and all of a sudden they're handing the ball to Mark Ingram, and Drew Brees is happy just to do little short passes to make the chains move. So there's your thoughts there to get Matt Ryan. We know Devontae Freeman is out. He's out. He's only played in 2 games thus far this year. He's not even eligible to come back until week 15 from the injured reserve. That means we have Tevin Coleman and Ito Smith. Basically, they're breaking it down. 2/3 of the snaps are going to Coleman. 1/3 is going to Smith. I like Ito Smith. Here's a little trick for you. I'm going to use him on the single game slate in my captain spot in a few lineups because then I can get everybody else. I'm sure I won't be alone in doing this, but he is more efficient, than Tevin Coleman has been. He has scored touchdowns in 4 different games, and he is someone that if he's there in the right situation or it's the right his turn to be on the field, because they don't really do situations there in Atlanta with these 2 guys, then the touchdowns could be his, and we've already seen that happen. It's been a couple weeks, but we did see it happen 3 weeks in a row where he got the touchdown. So I think both he and Tevin Coleman are absolutely viable. Here's the tricky part. New Orleans has been really good against the run. Well, EMAC, you're going to say that's because these guys have been, they're so far ahead, the other teams have to throw. Yeah, but they've got the number 5 DVOA against the run, according to Football Outsiders. And that's an efficiency metric that says how do they do in the same game situations versus the league average outcomes. So it doesn't matter that they're playing from ahead, from behind, et cetera. It neutralizes all of that. So they've been pretty good. The last 100-yard rusher they allowed, Samaje Perine, last year, week 11. Okay, so it's been a while. Wide receivers, love Julio. Julio, I think, is probably in the single game slate. He's the cover boy of my article. Yeah, of course I'd rather have Kamara. I'd rather have Michael Thomas. But we got to look at where all the ownership's going to go and where his salary is going to be. And particularly on DraftKings, where not only do you get the 1.5 multiplier for scoring, you get the 1.5 multiplier on their salary. FanDuel, you don't have to worry about that as much. But I think Julio is still definitely in play there on the single game slates as your they call it the MVP over there, because people are going to just put in one of the quarterbacks or one of the Saints players. Of course they are. Hey, what happened in a game with how many touchdowns were there on Monday night? There was 100 and some points and a million touchdowns. I forget, how many did Todd Gurley have? Oh, yeah, there's a guy that has scored in every single game this year, didn't do anything on Monday night. It can happen. It can happen. Kamara could have a bad game. Michael Thomas may not catch every pass that's literally thrown to him. Maybe it is a Julio night. So there's your reasoning behind that. Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, and Hooper, the tight end. I think those guys are all interchangeable. They all sort of get the same depth of target, production, and number of targets. Ridley is not exciting. We just happened to see him get 3 touchdowns in this game in week 3. He had 2 the next week in week 4. He's had 1 since then. Mohamed Sanu, yeah, let's go to him. By the way, I forget where he went to college, but I know he only has 3 100-yard receiving games in his career. 1 this year and 2 back when he was with Cincinnati. The upside's not there for him, Dan.
No.
Those are the guys there. Where did he go to college?
Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, which also where Gus Edwards.
I was going to say, isn't there a waiver claim in season? You and I have to talk about season 1.
Come on. There it is. Gus the Bus was a transfer in from Miami. Gus Edwards, he transferred after his sophomore year, was at Rutgers for 2 years. He's the real deal. If they run the read pass option there a ton, he could be fun. But yeah, listen, this game is going to be high scoring, but it's also not going to have everyone score. Like, I think that's where you have to be careful. Whereas the Rams-Chiefs game was very specific in being wide open and being this sort of air raid offense. These are 2 throwing offenses, but it's gonna be, I think, a very specific amount. Michael Thomas, Kamara. I do probably have Ito Smith vulturing some touchdowns here. I think that's something you have to project out. So I'm going with as I look through, as we talk through this, I'm probably going to go Elliott, Jordan Howard, and Ito Smith as my 3 running backs in a lineup. Then the utility, or the flex, whatever you want to call it. I guess the flex, because that's what it's called. And then working Thomas and Julio Jones. throw a Chase Daniel plus one of the Bears wide receivers, and then I'm done. I'll figure out the tight end and the defense from there. There you have my lineup. So you have Emacs cash game lineup, and you have mine. I don't play cash games on a 3-game slate, so you'll only see me in some GPPs. But anything else you make? What's your favorite play? Like, who do you think is the highest scoring player here? Who's the guy that, as you're constructing lineups, I don't think you're MMEing here, but you'd have 100% of if you were building 10, 20, 50, 100 lineups?
For me, it would probably be a coin flip between Elliott and Julio. And it would just be, you know what, there's a lot of options there on the Saints, and they're the sexy pick, and they're at home, and I need to gain some leverage on these other guys. And they're, you know, gosh, Traquan Smith literally could be the highest scoring player on this slate. We don't know what it's going to be. So there are no really bad takes on something like this, especially with the tournament so large. There, you're gonna. We hate to say the phrase, but sometimes you got to be dumb to win these things, because if you want to be alone, you may need to do something that's incredibly uncomfortable. And you know, pairing Chase Daniels and Zach Zenner, that could be it.
Something we do a lot in our household is we try to teach our kids that you don't want to call someone dumb. They're acting dumb. Like so sometimes you have to act dumb when playing DFS to be able to build that lineup that takes down a GPP, or you're dumb. I don't care.
A kinder, gentler Stratford household. And this is right. You say that, and then you get the eat your bleeping vegetables.
This morning we were out of sugar, and I take lots of sugar in my coffee, so we went to Dunkin' Donuts instead. And this is where we'll close. So happy Thanksgiving for anyone who's about to shut off the podcast. But we go, and my daughters are awesome. All three of them are incredible. I am very happy to be a father. I'm very happy that my family is what it is. But obviously, any kids, they get on your nerves eventually. They ask a lot of questions. My kids always want to know what's happening. Always want to know what's going on. Always want to know why something happened. So we get into the car, and I have their 2 hot chocolates, my coffee, and my wife's pumpkin latte thing. They didn't put her pumpkin latte all the way into the holder, so when I put it on the chair, it fell over. And right away, both girls were like, "What happened? What happened? What spilled?" And I'm like, "You do not need to know every damn thing as it happens." They both went silent. I'm sorry, but sometimes you gotta stop. And with that, I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for EMAC. I'm thankful for all the guys here at Osmo and all those DFSers out there. And thankful for you guys for listening. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy family, enjoy friends, or enjoy some alone time if that's what you are most thankful for. Appreciate you guys. I don't think Lofty and I will be back Friday morning. He and I are confirming that. We'll be back next on Monday morning, going to take the whole turkey day off. So you'll get the NBA strategy show Friday morning as your first piece of content. But I need to confirm that with Dave as we lock that in. But assume you'll hear from us on Monday morning right here on Osmo.com's The DFS Early Bird.